from the Passionate Home, and I'm here today with Christina from the Reclaimed Heirloom. We're having a paint party here and having all kinds of fun, and we are learning lots of techniques with Christina because as you've been probably following her, and if you aren't, you should. She has a great YouTube channel with lots of how-tos, and today we're doing some techniques on painting metal, because as you know, Annie Sloan's paint can stick to almost any surface without sanding and priming. So she brought some projects that she's going to step through, and I'm going to ask questions. These are brass, is that correct?
Correct.
Yes.
So just like this.
Right.
100%
So
before, and now
during.
we wanted to get a step up so we can show you right into the technique where we're going, but just to show you anything brass, you can definitely put chalk paint on.
Check this out. Thrift store find. And I asked Christina, what color would you paint this? Because sometimes you look at something and you think, first of all, some people think brass is outdated.
Yes.
This is lovely on its own, but if you were to paint it, what would you do?
So if I wanted to do that, I wanted to go with something that would be really earthy, you know, because it's going to be holding woods. I really wanted to, or you know, maybe a beautiful bouquet of flowers. I instantly thought
that would be beautiful, right in the center of a table, even with flowers or seasonal whatever.
Even a coffee table. You know, you want to just give it a spice, and you want to keep it neutral for any occasion. I would probably, my first thought is to go ahead with one beautiful coat of Enfleur, that chocolate brown. But then, just to give it more earthy elements, I would probably use a Paris Grey wash on that, and maybe even highlights of some pure white onto it. And then you're going to get those natural elements that you see even in woods, all kind of come together with it. And but it does look beautiful on its own too.
It does. Okay, well, show us what you're going to do today with these brass plates.
Okay.
And I'm going to ask questions as we go along, if that's okay.
Excellent.
Take it away.
So all I've done is painted it up, and I go with standardly 2 coats with anything on the metals. But it is thick enough. If you use it thick enough, you can sometimes get away with 1. With metal, I try not to get too picky, because I actually want to bring back just on the high points because of the detail of these plates. So these are wall hang plates. And what I want to do is I've got a French linen base on here, and I've got a Chateau Gray base on here. So what I want to do first is I'm actually going to get a little bit crazy, and what I want to do is just a little bit of a rag wash here. And all I want to do is take kind of like either a highlight or a low light, and again, play with your paints, play with your color tones.
Can you explain highlight and low light?
So anything, highlights is going to be anything that's going to be on the whiter spectrums. One of the best ways to do that is have your favorite colors and have a can of pure white, and you can make all these beautiful shades of really light colors. So if you want to go into yellows and greens and blues, but you want the more softer tones, those really light tones, and then the darker spectrum is obviously going to get into your dark grays, that graphite color, Athenian blacks, Enfleur. So those are going to be your dark. Those are going to be your shadow colors. Because if you look at any paintings or any type of artwork, everything has a depth or a shadow to it. And then anything that comes up is going to have a highlight to it. And that's where I try to really play around with paint. And we're going to get into some fun things as we keep going and sharing more with you guys, because I want to be able to show you guys that even on a flat surface, how am I going to create it to look like a highlight and a low light, because it's got no depth to begin with. So
keep watching.
Yeah, exactly. So you're gonna, I'll make a paint wash which will be a 1-to-1. So one portion paint, 1 portion water. And for something so small like this, I'm just gonna kind of wing it. And let's go with graphite.
So I just want to clarify, if you're new to chalk paint and we're talking about a wash is when you're adding water to the paint to make it a little more translucent. Is that correct?
Correct.
So a good start is a 50-50, 50 water, 50 paint, and then you can kind of see where it goes from there.
Yep.
Yeah, obviously the more water, the more translucent.
Exactly. I always tell people on any of my video tutorials, start with the 50-50, but if for some reason you wanted it more transparent, don't worry, don't go, oh my God, it's too thick, it wasn't translucent enough. You have a base coat. You have that brush you use with your base coat, go back with your base coat, dab through, and it's gonna help correct it. So there's always a way to, you know, there's always a way to get what you want.
Yeah.
Well, that's my theory with chalk paint. Anyway,
yeah.
If I want something, there's a way to do it, and I'm determined to get it. All right.
So you've made a wash with graphite?
So Okay. So what I love about graphite, it's actually a really like dark gray. So being transparent, this is a great way to make low lights.
I'm actually just going to come in and just to show a little bit closer.
Yep. So always start off just really small. You just kind of want to work into sections here. And especially when you have stuff that has detail. Oh, this is my favorite. And then, this is the way I do. A lot of people will use a dry rag, but I like to use a wet rag.
I use a damp rag. That's my friend with everything.
Reason is because if I use a dry rag, I find that it's picking up the pink tone too much. Whereas if I use a damp, it'll still allow me the color to kind of sit where I want it to.
So here's a question.
Yes.
You're using a wet rag.
Yep.
Will it take off the green colored paint that you've got there?
Not if you're dry. Not if you're 100% dry.
Right.
So the key with that, and trust me, I get a little impatient too.
Yeah.
Is try to plan out your project a little bit and give yourself a couple of hours. Generally overnight is best. Doesn't matter if it's furniture or home decor. Because when you want a nice thick coat of chalk paint, sometimes, and usually because of the environment we're painting, it could be too cool, it could be, the safest way to go is just, you know, the day before, give it a nice coat and you know it's not going to move. I work with a lot of water and paint, and my base coats never get altered with putting water on top.
As long as you're not strong arming it.
Oh, I'm sure if I got really aggressive with it, I could probably do it. And that's actually where we're going to try to bring up a little bit of maybe back that brass
I'm just going to
tone.
move this out of the way a little bit so people can see more of what you're doing.
So this is always a great way to give it an aged effect, right? Going in with the darker colors. But
I'm actually going to come closer because I think it's too hard for people to see this.
sometimes it's just fun to let the paint. When things age, they naturally drop. And I always found too that when we want things to age, it's never in a straight line.
Look at how the picture just came,
It comes,
popped out. If you look at the other one, it's so flat and you can't even see the ship.
nope.
So these are dollar store brass plates.
I paid 50 cents for this.
Too much.
Tried to bargain with him, but he wouldn't budge.
But you have a set of like 5 or 6 of these.
I do.
Imagine if you had a home by the ocean. Oh, you do. And
Exactly.
you're decorating a space.
Yes.
This would be beautiful.
So this is one way, and what I generally will do, which I find, and this is just my personal opinion, when I really want it to have kind of an aged and a lot of highlights and lowlights, and I really want it to have an authentic look, I find building the layers, so I would repeat this a couple of times.
Oh, okay.
And the versatility is maybe you like it just this transparency. It's just kind of lightly camouflaged a little bit with the graphite. Now, I've decided I want to go a little bit darker. So this is where you're playing with that paint and water a little bit. Start light, work your way up. So I like to have as much control as possible when I'm playing with it, so I don't have big drastic changes, and then it's going to be a lot more work to go back and correct. So building up, as well as, like I mentioned, when things age, it never age in a straight line. So the more layer I have, the more irregular it will be, but a natural irregular. I'm not one for the big sanded look, because it's too kind of done in one direction. I want it to have a little bit of this irregular kind of
Would
look.
you kind of dry brush, like after you clear waxed it, could you kind of dry brush maybe a black wax just on some of it?
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
I mean, wouldn't that be amazing as
Yep,
well?
Yep.
Or you could just cover it and then wipe it away.
Exactly.
I mean, yeah.
Exactly. So I'm going to move on to this one. Do we have some time to do that with this one, or do you want to make another one?
Are you going to try waxing? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, let's do a wax.
Okay. So I think what we'll do is it's been 10 minutes.
Okay.
We will take a picture of this when it's done.
Okay, perfect.
Or are you just going to wax that one?
I was just going to wax it.
Oh, let's just wax it and show people how it's just a different way of getting
A
that.
nice depth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess you're going to need some wax.
Let's go with black wax.
Black wax?
Yep.
Let me get it for you.
So one thing I just want to quickly mention again with the wax, if you are new with wax, is I would recommend probably putting a clear coat on this first and just learn to play with the wax, because if the wax to me is quite easy to work with, but if I'm new, it's nice to know I have a little bit of some leeway with it. So having that clear coat will allow you to use the wax and be able to bring it back a little bit. But again, I sometimes will get a little bit more crazy, and I know that I want it to get right in there, and there's no chance I'm going to want to bring it up. So just remember that the clear will act as an eraser. So if you're new, just may want to use that as a clear coat first, and then you can play around with your dark wax. All right. So again, always start small and build up.
Mm-hmm.
And I find doing the stippling on your lids disperses the wax a little bit easier for you.
Good point. Yeah. So I'm going to bring the camera in closer again, and just to show you guys. You know, I always start off light, and then I realize, I love it darker, and then I use the clear wax, like you said, as an eraser to really show those highlights.
So I'm going to do something I love doing.
Okay.
And because I brought in some pieces, and it's just something I like to do. I'm one for stepping out of the box a little bit with stuff, and as I have a piece of the steel wool, which is the ultra fine steel wool, and you can get those, I think, at Home Depot. Any hardware store usually carries that too.
Are you going to distress it with that?
Yeah.
Is that what you're going to do?
That's what I'm gonna do.
So excited.
But just like you said, sometimes it's better to start a bit smaller.
Yeah. Lighter.
Or sorry, that's a better word, lighter, and then kind of build up. See, what I love is how all the textures come out.
I was just going to say that. The more texture you have with paint, when you're using dark wax, it just highlights it.
Yep.
And so for someone who's really, is it fair to say anal, very perfectionist, this might not be for you, but it's such a great way to get creative.
Yep.
And
that's
that
what makes
looks
thrift
beautiful.
shopping so much fun,
I
because
know.
the item that we're using here already has all of this depth, and it has so much dimension to it just based on the way it's designed. So here's my steel wool. So this is just dry steel wool, and again, it's just something I will do, and I just buff it. Start off lightly, and then bring it back. And again, this is where I want that little bit of metal, just very lightly, to come back on those high points.
oh my gosh, I love that. And so you could do any color, like if you were decorating a seaside cottage and you wanted to do in shades of blue, you could do the same sort of thing.
Exactly.
Or, white or whatever.
That's why I always recommend, if you're gonna use a steel wool, try to get the finest steel wool, because it comes in different grits.
Correct,
Right?
yeah.
It's like sandpapers, they come in the different grits, right? And to be honest, I'm not really using a lot of
Pressure?
strength
Yeah.
and pressure. So if you don't want the metal to come back, just lighten up. You can always run a little bit. We started with the French linen. You can always run that back over if you did notice a little bit coming back. So
I like to see a little bit of the glass.
I
It
do
just
too.
adds,
When I'm working with
patina.
metal, yeah.
Yeah.
I think when you bring it back, Again, it's a preference. If you don't, I just want you to know that you can always grab that base coat and go right back to that. But one thing with the steel wool is, if you have a little too much, you can just take it out. But what a difference though.
Yeah, hold those up so you can see.
You know?
Oh my gosh, was that the same color?
No, what's close? This
close.
is the country gray.
That's beautiful.
And we started out with French linen on that.
That's really great.
So I'll finish that off and then you can display that so everybody can see it completely done.
Whoops,
But that's
yeah.
the exact method we're going to use to
Awesome.
finish this.
Thanks for the tips on painting metal and brass, and stay tuned because we may keep Christina another day or two to do some more videos with us of how to. So have a great day, create a beautiful life, and we hope to see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.